Hello, everybody. Thank you all for joining us for this first meetup this year. Before we actually start with our first meetup for this year, there are some announcements to make. And first of all, we are very happy to announce that we are in co-production with sorry, I blanked out. We are very proud that we are in co-production with the Center for Creativity, and these meetups and all of the other activities in this year are in a partnership network for Platform for Creativity, which is co-financed by European Union, from European Regional Fund, and by Republic of Slovenia. And so what does this mean is that in this year you will see more monthly meetups, more game jams, and also events like investors and investors days and demo days, which will be more geared to kind of like business development of this region. And one of also like bigger events in this year will be also Slovenian Games Conference, which will not happen in April due to epidemic situation currently, but we will move it to October, where we hope that this epidemic will kind of like cease to exist, I hope, and we will have easier time to organize the conference. And also one of like other bigger things this year will be game production masterclass, which will be gathered like to people who want to go from like idea or like market research and bring this idea like to prototype and then to MVP and then to actually publish it. And it will be like 3 months, 14 weeks, and 13 fantastic mentors. And one of the mentors is also today with us, Brin Žvan, who will talk about how to publish free games. But before that, I just need to mention it. Tomorrow at 5 p.m., we will have a global game jam, and we will gather on our Slovenia Games Discord, where we will start to form teams and start to brainstorm, and there will also be a team reveal and so on. And without further ado, I will give word to Brin Žvan, who will present how to publish free games.
Hi, thanks for the introduction, Rok. So yeah, like Rok said, I will be talking about how to put games online and how to like publish free games. And while the concept of like publishing a free game may seem a little bit ridiculous since like you're not really getting anything monetary out of this, I strongly believe that like games exist to be played, and by putting your game out there, you probably want it to be played. And to achieve that, you need people to actually see it, and that requires like some work and some effort into making sure that the game is actually going to be seen by people, going to be played by people. So you have to know the platforms, you have to know what to do to be able to be seen on them. Now, I will discuss a few of the platforms and a few of the things I've learned over the past 3 years of putting games up for free, on how I found myself a bit of an audience for the games that I've made so far. But I want to preface this that like while I have made games that have received like a few thousand, like in tens of thousands of plays, that doesn't mean that this will allow you, that like my tips will allow you to achieve the same thing. Every game is different. Every game strives for a different audience. Every game is perceived differently, right? So something that necessarily works for me doesn't mean that it will work for your completely different game, or even for a game that is a carbon copy of my game, right? It is just things that I have learned, and you might be able to see that they could fit into your like your way of putting games online. First, I want to discuss the platforms where you should be putting your games. I think the obvious one, the one that you're seeing on the screen here, no, here, yeah, here on the screen, is itch.io. It is like it's usually described as like Bandcamp for games. You probably already have an itch page if you are making indie games, because it is like the free Steam. It's like the place where you put your games that you made over the weekend on a game jam, and the game jam is probably ran on itch.io anyway, so you're probably throwing your games there. There is, I think, a big difference though between like a game on itch that makes you wanna that makes itself wanna be played, and a game that is just there. But we'll discuss that later. There are, however, other platforms besides itch that can be useful and can be interesting to look at, and can give you potential ideas about where to put your games. And I want to highlight two of them. The first one being Newgrounds. No, if you were a kid in 2006, you probably know this website. Newgrounds was very popular when it came to publishing Flash content, whether that was animations, whether that was games, or anything in between. You could find it on Newgrounds. And while one would think that Newgrounds was going to die with the end of Flash, like what was this, last year, 2 years ago? It actually kept growing and growing, and it is going through a bit of a renaissance right now, where there was this popular game called Friday Night Funkin', which was uploaded, I think, 2 years ago at this point, or a year and a half. It was made for Ludum Dare, and it's currently sitting at around 55 million plays on Newgrounds. So Newgrounds definitely has an audience. It definitely has a different audience than what you would find on itch, but it is certainly as well a site that you should consider. One thing that I found myself is that the audience that I find on Newgrounds tends to be more oriented towards character-driven games, or games where you can give them some sort of a high score to chase on. These happen to be more like younger gamers who are used to norms, whereas itch, in my experience at least, is more avant-garde gamers, right? Like people that are trying to find something new, who are maybe sick and tired of the AAA and current like mainstream indie scene that they know. Another platform to consider would be Gamejolt. Gamejolt is a website that was actually, it's kind of like itch in a way. Like people upload games on it. It has a bunch of communities, as opposed to itch, where you just kind of publish your game. Here you publish games and you can post them in like different communities. So for example, there's like communities for horror games, or communities for fan games, and especially fan games. Gamejolt is a big platform for that. So if you make like a Super Mario fan game or a Undertale fan game or something like that, there's probably a community on Gamejolt that accepts this. I didn't want to mention though, there was like a bit of a kerfuffle that happened in the past 3 weeks ago, something like this, with Gamejolt, where they started removing any games that, according to them, contained like sexual acts, which also then included a bunch of like games about like coming out LGBT stories, or people dealing with trauma. So maybe veer on the side of like caution, or do your own research whether like you want to support this platform. But regardless of how you look at it, especially when it comes to horror games, Gamejolt is a platform that is filled with players that are looking to play games. So it's not just itch. Itch is kind of like the poster child when it comes to publishing games, putting something that you've been working on the side for like 1 month up there, and then hoping that it works out. There's also Gamejolt, there's also Newgrounds. If you look further than that, you will be able to find even more portals, such as, I'm not even joking you, there's one called Free Math Games, where like originally it was just a Flash portal for posting games that were related to math, right? Like learning serious games. But then in the end, like it still has an audience. It is still played. Like there are still games there that are played by a bunch of kids, probably like during their Zoom classes or something like that. But it is a platform, right? Like all of these platforms that you kind of remember probably from when you were a kid and when you were playing browser games in your classroom, they still exist, or like a lot of them do. Another one is Armor Games. For some of these platforms, you might need to send like an email or two to be able to be put on the platform. For example, for Free Math Games, there is no like submit the game button like you have it on Gamejolt or Newgrounds or itch.io. There is just an email and you have to talk to the person. The same would go for Armor Games. However, there are still platforms that are serving different kind of that are serving games to players, and are still worth considering. And I understand that there is like a bit of a bigger like barrier to entry when it comes to actually emailing somebody to get your to put your game onto the internet, as opposed to itch, where I can literally just click this button, go to dashboard, and then where is it? Where's create new project? Well, there we go, upload new project, right? Like I just click a button and I upload my build, and the game is there and the game is here. But what is important to note is that like publishing games and getting games to be seen is a lot of time just a ordeal of extroverted matters. It's just like a case of being able to talk to people, sadly enough. Like even if you make one of the best games in the world, the chances of it being noticed if you just put it out there and don't try to put it in the hands of the people yourself, right? Like you just post it on your itch profile, the chances of it actually becoming being noticed are very low. I'm gonna show you the analytics of my itch page, where I get around like 50 to 100-ish views on a daily basis. But then you can see like this gigantic spike here in October from this year, or from last year, sorry. And why this spike happened was because one of the games that we were publishing with a friend got featured on the front page. And that feature didn't happen because some algorithm decided to pick up this game, or because somebody from itch just happened to see this game and decided to feature it. It happened because of a conversation. It happened because of the fact that we kind of just decided to find the email of somebody from itch and send the game to them. It is about talking to people, sadly, a lot of times. But this so yeah, so it's about like taking so it's about like trying to put your game out there for the people instead of expecting the people to actually come to your game. There are thousands, hundreds of games that get published on itch every day. If you go to the newest page, the newest games under the browse category, and just like most recent, and we just like keep refreshing here, we're bound to see like new titles pop up every few minutes. So again, this is why it would be worth considering Gamejolt and Newgrounds, because if you do this on Newgrounds, Newgrounds has like as a platform a bit of a different way of having games be accepted on there. It is still just a case of me clicking this button and clicking game and then submitting whatever I want to submit, right? But Newgrounds has this like under judgment tab, and whenever you upload a game that you want to put on Newgrounds, the game starts being judged by people. And enough people have to rate it as a good enough game. They have to rate it like it's a 1 to 5 stars rating. And if enough people rate it above 2.5 stars, then the game actually gets onto the page. And if it's below 2.5 stars, then it gets gets taken down from the page. You basically get a message like it was not accepted onto Newgrounds and that you will not be on the page. And why this is interesting, and why Newgrounds specifically, because of this under judgment feature, is interesting, is that there are players who are just like scouring for new games. There are players who want to be kind of like the deciders whether they feel like some game is good or not. So you will actually have people that are actively like on the newest games page and like refreshing it and playing the new stuff that ends up there, because this is something that they find interesting. They like playing this role of a curator. This is not something that happens on itch or on Gamejolt, for the matter of fact, right? But what you will encounter, though, if you want to put a game onto Newgrounds, is that your game has to be a game that's in HTML5. So it needs to be playable in a browser. And regardless if you're putting the game on Newgrounds or on itch or on Gamejolt, my number one comment here, or like advice, would be to make your game as quickly and as easily playable as possible. Do not make it a burden for the player to actually have to play your game. And what I mean by that is make an HTML5 build. I understand that like it is not the for some game engines this is not possible, and for some games you will lose certain graphical features, especially when it comes to HTML5. However, it is worth considering if you can make an HTML5 build into doing that, because that means that there will be very little friction from somebody finding your game to actually being able to play your game. There will be just a click of one button, not the click of download and then unzipping and then finding the exe file, and then maybe Microsoft Windows Defender decides that it's that this is like a bad file and that it won't let you play the game. God forbid you're on a Mac, you'll get like 10,000 security pop-ups, right? So if you make the game as easily accessible, if you just put it in the browser where you just click play, that's going to be such a simple way for somebody to actually start playing the game. You are removing a lot of friction. This is especially true because when you make an HTML5 game, you are allowing yourself the privilege of not having to make the page for your game look pretty. Now, let me show you an example. This is a game that I made around 2 years ago at this point. It's a game that runs in the browser, and it's a game that has like a flat background. So what I was able to do because of this was just make the rest of the site here the same color as the background, right? Inside of the game. And the game kind of blends into the website itself, and it looks nice. And I'm able to do this because of the fact that like the game actually runs inside of the browser. There is nothing to this website, right? It is just 3 lines of text and the game, and the same color around the background. No, again, like if you have a game that is maybe not just like a few pixels and a flat background, right? Like you are not able to do this. But still, when you put the game onto the page, it is the game that is the forefront of the website. It is the game that is the main focus of the website. You do not need to put a lot of effort into making the website look pretty. Because regardless of how you look at it, when you have a downloadable game, it is not the game that is going to sell the player to be downloaded. It is the website. It is the screenshots that you decide to pick. It is the trailer that you make. It is the thumbnail that you have, right? So if you must have a downloadable game, whether that's because of like some graphical features or the engine that you're using is not allowing you to export in HTML5 or whatever, you have to put in the effort into your game to try to make it look as pretty as possible, the web page as pretty as possible for presenting your game, because this is what is going to be selling the game, right? I need to find the stuff that I see on here appealing enough to click this download button, right? To click this download button and then go through the installation process, or like just like finding that exe file or unzipping or whatever, right? And you can really easily distinguish yourself if you put as rude as it might sound, if you put just like minimal amount of effort into the website, because a lot of the games on itch don't do that. That really boils my piece, I think, is a great example of something that is not anything special. Like this is nothing special. It is just using like the default things that itch allows for you. Gamejolt, by the way, allows you to customize the page of your game as well in a similar manner to itch, whereas Newgrounds just serves it like inside of the Newgrounds website, and there's no customization, but there's also no downloading on Newgrounds. Anyway, right? Like that really boils my piece is just like using simple features of the each website. It's using a header, right? Like it has a header, but that header is animated. It's just like a GIF of the model from the game and the logo tilting a little bit to the left and to the right. But this adds so much like production value. It makes the game seem so much more interesting, and it makes me more attracted to this website than if I were to look just like at a static default each page. The same goes for the screenshots, right? As you can see, the screenshots that you post don't have to be static. And that's one of the best parts that you can do about each pages. When you actually have to force people to download things, make good use of the fact that you can put pictures there, and the pictures are the things that are going to sell the game to people. Try to think like, how do you usually buy a game on Steam or like look at a game on itch? You don't usually, I have not read this description, even though like this page was one of the first tabs that I prepared for this talk, or like that I saved for this talk. I have never read like whatever the text here is, right? Because it's not the text that's selling me the game, it's the visuals that are selling the game to me, right? It's the fact that like this header is jumping around, and the fact that like this developer here is using GIFs inside of the screenshots is very smart, because that's another way of like drawing attention to something that's happening. I see like a cool menu, right? Whereas again, if you don't have these things done, if you don't take care of this, it's just going to be a download button, and you have to convince me to click that download button. And the more effort you put into it, the easier it will be for me to believe you that it's worth my time to actually download the game. And like I said, like this sort of a page is nothing special. There are, of course, really, really nice itch pages and Gamejolt pages for that matter, because both itch.io and Gamejolt allow you to customize your website with CSS. This requires like some web development knowledge or some copy pasting from the internet. But if we take a look at like some really nice websites, this one doesn't use anything custom actually, but it's just like a nice example of another itch page that convinces you to download the game, right? Like it's just using the header and then images inside of the description to try to make, again, like a website that blends really well. You see, like the background of this image is the same, if we look at the image itself, as the background of the page, which means that, again, it all looks like a nice seamless website. I will link these websites later, and we will put it into the description of the video with Rock. I'll also post them in the Discord if anybody's interested in looking at them as examples. But if we look at like some pages that are made custom or are using custom CSS, we can find some amazing stuff like Takori's pipe, which again like employs some extremely simple tricks, like just putting GIFs into different places. But like if you remove this part, I would not be able to tell you that this is an itch page because it's like so well done, right? And when I'm scrolling down this page, I'm getting more and more interested about the game because I'm seeing different features of the game, right? Like this GIF is essentially a trailer for the game. And that's what they are deciding to show us, right? Like they're deciding to show us the trailer, then like some promotional graphics next to it, right? And it ends with a big, nice download now button that is also stylized to look in the same style as the rest of the web page. This is obviously a lot more work than the website of That Really Boils My Piss. And I think the website that of This Really Boils My Piss is beautiful. The same goes for Birdsong, right? But it is something that can be done and something that can be achieved. If you do want to try making something like this, you can email the itch.io support and just ask them to enable your CSS. And when they do enable your CSS, sometimes it takes them some time, but when you do it, you have like this little feature when you go under Edit Theme, where you can enter custom CSS, which like on this site that I'm going to showcase to you now, which is from one of my games, is extremely simple. It is just 4 lines of code. We're just hiding some elements to make sure that the website is always, and making sure that the website is always centered. And if we look at this one, to toot my own horn a little bit, this is from a game that we made in December with some friends, and we're just extensively using GIFs. This was a game that we couldn't upload on as an HTML5 build because we were using some of Unity's lighting system that gets broken in an HTML5 build. And what we just did, we recorded some nice GIFs, and we used images as headers inside of the descriptions as well, right? To try to make the website stand out. Again, there's this same trick of like using a single color background to make the page seem more seamless instead of like the two column layout, like the one big column in the middle that is distinct from the background layout that each uses by default. And then we were just using different GIFs of trying to showcase different parts of the game, right? And then again, once you scroll down, you get a nice download button. So why I'm showing you all of these pages while I was talking about communicating with people first before is because when you're gonna ask somebody for a favor, when you're gonna and you should try to ask people that like run itch.io or Newgrounds, you should try to talk to them, because you have to understand these are all like not the most commercial of websites, Gamejolt probably being the most commercial of all of them. But these are all websites that are ran by people that love indie game development and independent art in general. And if you show them that you're using the tools that they are providing you, they are way more likely to be willing to cooperate with you and feature you, whether that's through you emailing them or just by them finding your game. That is a different story, but it is a lot easier. For example, like this game is the game that gave us the spike, the like front page feature spike. And this game, when we were creating the page, we put a lot of effort into it. We're not using a lot of custom CSS, like I said, right? But it's like we provided builds for every single system that we could. We tried to put in the effort into making the web page look as nice as possible. We filled out all of the metadata, right? Like itch.io is a platform, and we used all of the tools that the platform provided. So you have to look at this whole thing from the eyes of the platform. When we look at the front page of Itch, any of the featured games that we're going to look at are probably going to look nice when we're going to go to their website, because these websites are showcasing the nice features of each, the nice tools that itch.io is providing you, right? We are using the tools of the platform, and therefore the platform is much more likely to feature us. It's also just like a lot nicer to look at something like this than to look at a default itch page, right? Um, so, and I think like it is a super good like just inspiration to look through these pages that are on the featured list. You can see that this one is simple, but it is using all of the features that itch.io is giving you. It has a nice header image that like sits on top of the main description. It has a trailer. It has screenshots, right? Like it is giving you again all of this like all of the information that itch allows you to give to the user, and these sort of things are way more likely to be featured. I did say before that like there is no way in hell that like anybody is going to notice you without you talking to anybody or without you trying to reach out and put the game in front of people. Sometimes that can happen. I don't think you should rely on this, right? But it happens more when you're like already an established creator, that people, especially on the side, that people know that you have released a game. They see that that you have released a new game, and they're willing to check it out, or they already know that you made a good game before, so they're gonna feature this one as well. An example of this is Lucky Town from Sockpop. Sockpop is a very established developer on itch.io. They make a lot of very high quality games. I'm not sure if they actually talk to the people at itch. I'm sure they do at some points, right? But they don't need to make sure that that the games get featured on the front page, because the developers of itch.io know that when Sockpop uploads a game, their game will be good. The same goes for Managor. Managor has consistently been making absolutely stunning games pages for the past 4 or 5 years, as long as they have been on itch.io. Like whichever one of these we will click, these are gonna look beautiful. And whenever they release a game, it rightfully gets featured on the front page of itch, because it is simply stunning to look at not only the game and not only play the game, but it is a stunning experience to get to the game, right? Like if I click on Breaker here, you're gonna see that the whole thing is absolutely beautiful. But that is simply because it's using a background that is like tiling with the lines that are the background of this game, right? So what I'm saying is make the website pretty, because when you have the website pretty, it is a lot easier for you to email somebody at itch and be like, hey, we made a really cool game, check it out, would you mind actually featuring it on the front page? And you may think that it is like extremely rash to just email somebody from a website like this, but they're actually like out there for you to find. This is the itch page of Spencer Heiss. He works at itch.io and he likes to eat burritos, and he has his email address here, right? So here is his email address. Like write it in a notepad.txt, and the next time you make a page and you make a game and you make a nice page for it, send an email to Spencer and ask him if he could feature your game on the front page. His Twitter bio also says that, right? That like he is a content and business at itch.io, and that like a lot of times he tweets out that like you should send him stuff that's interesting or cool, right? So go ahead, go contact Spencer. I'm sure like if you have a cool game and a nice website to present that game, he would be more than happy to put it like on the front page of itch.io. And this same approach of like just fuck it, like be willing to email people, can be applied, at least in my experience, in Newgrounds, where like the guy that runs Newgrounds, Tom Fulp, like is very approachable, and you can literally just send the guy a message on the website itself. Like he made this site, his DMs are open. Just slide into them and send them a message. Another thing that I want to say about Newgrounds is that as opposed to itch, it's a platform that gets a few less uploads per day, quite a few less uploads per day than Newgrounds. And because of the whole like filtering system, where the users are filtering out new games and old games, it happens that the developers of Newgrounds, that's I think Tomi Uta and no, the Danny Uta, so some guy like whose last name is Uta, and Tom Fulp often actually check out the games that are being published on the website. And a lot of these games end up being featured here because they like them. And this, or sometimes they even tweet about them, right? It is a case where, like, if you make a nice game, put it out there. The creators might play this, right? And then they may feature it. But you can also just always go for the YOLO move and just like send them a message and ask them, hey, could you give me some feedback? Would you, if you think it's good, would you mind like featuring it on the page? And of course, like that should already be a given. But like when you're trying to talk to these people, you're asking them to give you a favor, right? So like be respectful towards them. It is not like they're you are not obliged to get like featured on the front page. And like I said, like you shouldn't take this as like 100% works in every scenario sort of advice. But I think like if you show that you put effort into the game, and in terms of Gamejolt and itch.io, in terms of presenting the game and using the feature that the platform provides for you, they are more likely to be willing to cooperate with you and actually put your game as a feature. Newgrounds doesn't allow you to do anything with the with the side of the game, right? But if I go to the page of One Button Bosses, you can see that we have a thing called medals here and high scores, which are using an API that Newgrounds provides. It's like an extremely simple API to work with, at least in Unity and in Godot and in Construct, which is my experience. And it's something that like the developers of the website, again, like to use. These are the features that the website provides to us. It gives us like this whole framework of doing achievements and doing high scores. And we're using this framework that they're providing for us because we feel like it can benefit the users and it can benefit our game, right? It's also the sort of thing that like you may read when you're looking to publish a game on Steam later, where it's like, yeah, Steam players like Steam achievements. Who would have guessed it, right? And you just have some sort of people that hunt medals on Newgrounds in the same way that you have people on Steam that hunt achievements. And for those sort of players, it's going to be interesting that you have these features implemented that the website is providing to you. But it's also, like I said before, a feature that the tool is providing you with. And then the creators are way more, not necessarily way more, right? But like I believe that they're going to be more interested if I'm using their tools as well than if I'm just somebody out of nowhere asking them for a favor that isn't benefiting them in any way, shape, or form, right? Like now, Tom Fold can maybe point at One Button Bosses and say, "Hey, look at this game that's using the Newgrounds high score system. It's doing quite well." I want to mention as well that, at least for myself, besides Smuggler, which was featured on the front page of Itch, I have found like way more success posting my games on Newgrounds. They get like around 40 to 60,000 views here on average, whereas on Itch I would usually get 500 to 1,000 plays at best. Again, your mileage might vary. I think Newgrounds has a different audience, not so much the avant-garde looking for walking simulator sort of people, but more we like arcade games. We like high scores. There is like a high score table on the actual website, right? Sort of people that are in. So my games, like very arcade games, tend to lean towards this sort of player base a bit more. No, okay. Let's say that like you don't want to put your game completely out there, as in like on websites, and try like emailing somebody who has about 50,000 Twitter followers, because it sounds a bit intimidating, and it is a bit intimidating, right? What I would really recommend is humanizing your game in that case. And what I mean when I say humanizing is making sure, or trying to make people understand that this game was made by a person. Because when we see something on the internet, we're very quick to discard it because of the whole information overload that happens. Let's check like the most recent games here, if we have any new games, right? Like the game that was, this game was here before, and in the span of this talk, there's like 6 new games on each. There is a tremendous amount of content that gets posted online, and it's very hard to feel overwhelmed by it, or rather to start not caring about it. I do not care about Unfair. I am sorry, Kakana-chan, but I do not care about the game that they posted. However, if this person walked up to me at a game developer meetup and told me, hey, could you try out my game? I've been working on it for the past 3 weeks, and I've been wondering what people think about it. I would be more than willing to do that, because then I have a face to put next to this game, and I have a human who I associate with this game. Whereas now it is just like something that I see, and I look at the thumbnail and I think, and that's it, right? So what I mean when I say humanizing the game is literally like take your laptop and go out there between people, whether that is your friends, which is like, or your parents or your grandparents or your uncle, right? Like the people around you, or whether there is like a local community that you can find, or an online community that you can also find. Take your game and try putting it between the people. When I say like your parents and friends are the obvious stuff, right? And obviously a lot of times, at least for me, when I was doing this, it felt like, oh, they're doing me a favor, right? Like they're playing this game because they're trying to do me a favor and they're trying to make me happy. But when it comes to something more like local game development community, first of all, I don't think you should feel that way, by the way. But when it comes to something like local game development communities, at least the one in Slovenia, is extremely like helpful in my experience towards each other. And people are more than willing like to try out your games and to give you feedback on things, because we're all kind of like learning this stuff together and we're all trying to improve at it, right? So I would really suggest going to the game development meetups that happen every month, thankfully, in Slovenia, right? Like in the span of this thing, or like hang out in Discord chats. The Slovenian game development one isn't like the only one that you can hang out with. There's like a bunch of other ones as well, right? Like I'm sure if you start Googling for game development communities, you will be able to find a bunch of them. However, when it comes to online communities, one thing maybe to note is, and also this community or any like local in-person community, is that you really shouldn't go in with the expectation of these are people that are going to try out my games, but more like these are people, full stop. I hope they can try out my games, right? Whereas, because if you just see them as like a vehicle of getting people that are playing your game, then you're dehumanizing them, right? And like then there is no humanization happening with your game either. And that's when you get like actual genuine feedback, and it doesn't feel odd, because it does feel kind of odd when like somebody just shows up in a Discord out of nowhere and then they post like 5 different things into the feedback channel or the working on channel or something like that, right? Like it feels very much like seeking for help without being willing to contribute towards the community at all. So besides like these community groups, a good way to try to find communities that are where you can do this sort of things or meet people that could give you feedback, that could like play this, is games festivals and conferences. And especially like the festival parts, games festivals are usually more like indie focused and are therefore more friendly towards like lone developers, and are more about like putting a face on a human on a game. Because you know that, okay, it was Rock that made this game. It wasn't like Super Mega Evil Corp or something like that, right? I will share this spreadsheet. This is a super cool spreadsheet that a classmate of mine made last year. It is not including everything for 2022, but it has a giant list of conferences that and which month they happen in, and then it also has a year. But usually, like conferences are and festivals are a yearly thing. So usually, like if White Knights Conference Spring happened in April 2021, we can probably expect that it's also going to happen in April 2022. And it has like emails and links and teams, whether there is teams to all of these people, and whether there is like an entry price. These are all absolute, like this is a great resource if you just want to check. And the location as well, of course. And this is a great place, like if you want to check out if there's like any online event that you could sign up for, or maybe something close by to Slovenia, or if you're not from Slovenia, somewhere else in the world, right? Like Slovenia has this advantage of being a super small country, and going to Hungary, Austria, Italy, or Croatia does not take you that much time. So you literally have 5 countries to choose from when it comes to picking whatever games festival you want to go to, where you want to showcase your games, right? And again, when you are in a actual physical location, when you are there with your laptop showing your game to people, that's when this is humanized, right? Like that's when they see you and the game. They don't just see a weird thumbnail on each that they don't click on. When you're trying to present a game to these conferences, a lot of times you will have to like sign up for certain things. It is good practice, again, to have a nicely organized webpage or something that you can show to people. If you prefer not using Itch or Gamejolt or Newgrounds, if you just want to like have information nicely presented in a simple manner, I would really recommend using this. It's called Press Kitty. This is a fork of a project called Presskit, which was developed by Rami Ismail from Vlambeer. And Presskitty is a modernized fork from Janus. And essentially, you just feed it data, right? Like, it is a simple project to set up. You have to follow some of the instructions here. And then you just feed it data, right? Like, you tell it, oh, here's my header. Oh, this is my description. Oh, this is like the contact email of our game. And then it generates like this nice setup for you. And it's easy to read. And it's kind of industry standard because of Presskit. Like, this is a layout that reporters are used to. This is a layout that people that are reviewing games at like at festivals, or like picking, selecting out who gets to have a booth and so on. This is like the sort of stuff that they're used to, because Presskit was immensely popular and still is immensely popular. Presskit is just like a more modern, easier to set up version of it. So that, I think, like would be concluding most of the things that I have to say. So if I try recapping really fast, make HTML5 builds whenever you're trying to put your game anywhere, because it removes a lot of the barriers from having to convince the person to download the game. If you do have a downloadable game, and even if you have an HTML5 game, right, try putting in the effort into making the game seem nice, into making the website that is presenting the game seem nice. Because when you cannot play the game like this, what is selling your game is not the game; it is what is the website that is presenting it, the website that the download button is hosted on, right? Acknowledge that there are multiple platforms. There isn't just itch. We can make like I showed you, we can use itch and make a lot of beautiful websites on it that present things very beautifully. But we have to understand that itch has its own audience, and there's a bunch of other websites that have audiences that are worth considering, like Gamejolt. Gamejolt is especially good for horror games, or Newgrounds, which, at least in my anecdotal experience, has been very good for high-score arcade games. Whenever you are using any of these platforms, though, try to leverage whatever the tools they provide you with. On itch, that's going to be making a nice and beautiful website, right? On Newgrounds, that's probably going to be using achievements and the high score system that they provide. I have no clue what Gamejolt does. I have never actually used Gamejolt myself, but I'm sure that they have like their own features as well. I remember seeing this game on some other platform, and it looks super nice. But like you see, like the header here is super nice, right? But like, use the platform's tools that they provide you, because then the platform will be more interested in your game that you're putting on there. And if you're feeling brave enough, again, this is, oh, there we go. Here is Spencer's email. Email Spencer that you want to be featured on itch. Search for Tom Fulp on Newgrounds, right? Figure out who the hell is in charge of Gamejolt and email them if they are willing to feature your game on Gamejolt, right? And lastly, if you're not willing to put your game online, or even if you are, as a complementary thing, humanize your game. Go to conferences, go to meetups, be a part of communities where people are going to be willing to play your games. Remember, like, I'm talking about free games here. This is not something that's going to make you a buck, right? Like, when it comes to just publishing games for free, I've made $20 and a half so far, right, with free products in the past 3 years. But games are a medium. They're a form of expressing yourself. And what's better than just seeing a random piece of artwork is being able to know the author that's behind the artwork. That makes it feel more personal. That makes you care about something a lot more. So get the people that are close to you to play your games. Become part of the communities where you will be interested in what the next game that your friend Rok will make, not just like some random person on the internet will make. And sign up for festivals. Look at this spreadsheet. There's a bunch of things here that you could probably go to. A lot of them are digital because of the pandemic, right? A lot of these things are cheap because thankfully people in the game development community realize that events in person can be gatekeepy and can require a lot of first-hand investment that you may not be able to afford if you're not coming from a privileged position. So a lot of these conferences that are digital, and if I just do a Control F for digital, we have one result. What the hell? Okay, I guess like the browser is being weird, but like you can see like at least like 7, probably like 20 different digital conferences here, right? And most of these are going to be free. Attend them, be part of communities. your games are not going to be seen if you don't try to make them be seen. So I think if there's any questions, I guess we can go on that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brin. That was a really nice talk. And yeah, now we'll go to the questions and answer session. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them down in chat. And in meantime, I will ask some of my own questions to Brin. And yeah, I guess I will start like, did you like try publishing like the same game on like multiple platforms, like same game on like itch.io, Newgrounds, and Gamejolt?
Yeah.
Or
So like I said, I have absolutely no experience with Gamejolt. I just know that it's a huge, it has a huge audience for horror games, which is why I think it's worth mentioning. But usually when I post games, I cross-post them to Newgrounds and to itch.io. And the games that I've had success with in itch were more like exploration games, I guess. Whereas on Newgrounds, I found more success with games that are like high score chasing games, right? One button bosses on each has, I think, like 70 plays, whereas on Newgrounds it has 66,000 plays, right? Like there is a huge delta in there. It's also the case that like on Newgrounds I've had like more exposure given by the creators of the website than I had on itch. So like maybe that's like the reason why, right? Like my following on Newgrounds is bigger, but I think like you the only thing that you lose by publishing on more sites is time, right? And if you want to implement some of their features, even more time. But if you have time, why not? Like go post it on Newgrounds, or post it on itch. Though I think it's worth like if you don't have a lot of time, just focusing on trying to really use one of the platforms more than just posting low effort stuff on all of the platforms. Like I said, I think like this friction of like playing the game and the invitation to play the game has to be like as low as possible. And if I put like a game on Newgrounds that has absolutely no medals or no high scores, and the same game on itch without styling the web page at all, I don't think it's going to get much plays anywhere, right? So I would rather just like maybe not spend the time on the itch page and make sure that I have if it's already like a high score game, that it has a Newgrounds high score system implemented, than spending the time posting it on both of the platforms.
Okay, and what would be like your, let's say, go-to page, like if you like, or like your favorite page that you like posting in?
For me, it's just Newgrounds, because like, while I like making pretty pages on itch, I think it's like time consuming, and I understand why most of the pages are just like the default stuff with maybe the font changed to like the pixel, like press start player 2 font that is like one of the default fonts under the drop down there, because it takes time and because it's kind of annoying. I would like, I'm completely biased towards Newgrounds because I make arcade games and those games seem to perform better there for me, and it's nice seeing comments from people, right? And I don't get comments on arcade games on itch usually. That doesn't mean arcade games on itch are not able to be successful, right? But just personally, yeah, I would post on Newgrounds. That doesn't mean you should post on Newgrounds exclusively, though, and disregard the other ones.
And if you go like this route of like kind of like stylizing your game, you said that if like your page actually like shows like kind of like a preview of what game could be, right? And if you have like a prettier page, you will have like, let's say, more download links, right? But I want to go like maybe into other direction. Like I know I saw a lot of like people that like posted let's say free demos or like small chunks of games on, let's say, on itch.io, and that was kind of like cross promotion that led to the, like, let's say, Steam page, or do you have any experience with that, like, or did you like try that?
Not really, not yet. Like I cannot say like, yes, do that, that's gonna be successful. It's something that I'm going to try. I have like 2 demos that are supposed to be posted to both like itch and Newgrounds in February that are both going to lead to Steam pages, right? But I have no experience when it actually comes. Like comes to selling a game on Steam. So I cannot tell you, yes, this works. I think it's like a thing that has so many factors in it that is not just about, do people like to wishlist the game when they play the demo on itch, right? Like, it's so much more. It's like, is the game actually good, and does it actually like incentivize the player to think about what could there be in the full game, right? Like, how is the demo maybe good but feels like sufficient enough that you don't want to play the game anymore? Like, between 2010 to 2015 or 2006 to 2015-ish, there were very few games that actually made demos, because there was this kind of like industry idea that people will not play the full game if they play the demo, because they will get because people don't finish. People just play like the first 1 hour, 70% of the people, or something like that, right? And then that's it. And the demo usually provided that, like the first 30 to 60 minutes. So I don't know. I would say go try it out, test out these platforms, right? Like, figure out what works. I know, for example, Natalie Lawhead makes a lot of like pixel jank, weird core games. I know they publish them on both itch.io and on Gamejolt, and that they have had like success on both of those platforms without any sort of cross promotion, I think. I usually like what I end up doing usually when I'm making a game is I implement like the Newgrounds medals or high scores, and then on the each page I just have like a link that says, if you want to play the version with high score, here's the link to Newgrounds. I'm not sure if that actually leads any people to Newgrounds, because it don't really do analytics on that. But hey, maybe it does, right? So I guess you could say that I did try it out.
And like, do you think like I know, as you said, like that like some of the pages like had their like own Renaissance stage. I mean, on Renaissance period now. Do you think like that that now, like that for small indie games, like that web like or like web-based like platforms are like a go-to, like, because they're really easy to play. You don't need to like download. You don't have like trust issues, like, you know, with like downloaders and antiviruses and so on. Like, do you think that that's kind of like the future of like small games and like small indie games?
I have absolutely no clue. Like, I am extremely biased here because this is the platform that I know. This is the platform that like I feel at home in, and it's the platform that I publish to. But I can say that like, if we look at the current landscape, like I said, like Newgrounds literally exploded in 2019 when Friday Night Funkin' was uploaded on it, and it became popular because of TikToks, I think, right? And when the game gets updated, the website regularly crashes because it cannot handle the load of all of the users trying to play the updated version, right? So like, these are platforms that are popular regardless of the fact that Flash is dead, and that you cannot expect to like make a Flash game anymore and have websites like have bidding wars over it on which website is going to be hosted. What I do want to say though is that like, even if we ignore like this amazing case of Friday Night Funkin', that web communities are like super cozy to be in, because a lot of these communities are, in my opinion, like at least in my well, specifically for Newgrounds, it's like a nice community that is very much based on like critique and feedback, whether or not the person that is giving the critique is making games. And if we look at like some of the like, look at Wordle. Wordle is a game that it has nothing to do with Newgrounds, but Wordle is an extremely popular game right now, and it runs in your browser. Sure, there's like a ton of app store versions of it, right? But like Wordle, like you open Safari on your phone and you write wordle.com or whatever the website is, and you play there, right? And the whole web page runs there. Like, web as a platform is becoming more and more powerful. There's less and less things with every day that you cannot do on the web that you can do on a desktop, and it is removing a gigantic barrier to entry. Like you said, there's no like trust issue of having to download something. If you're not somebody who's computer savvy, right? Like, we have to remember that for a lot of us that are making games, like, this sort of stuff seems extremely like self-explanatory. Yeah, I download something and click and then say, yes, I trust this file, and that's it, right? But like, if you're somebody who primarily like just plays console games like on a not very like hardcore level, you may not be like like you just use your computer for work, you may not be familiar with this sort of like messages. You're not so tech savvy, and the more you remove these barriers, these scary gates to entry, the easier it is. And that's like the beauty of the web, that it's like a street that you walk on, right? Like you can walk on a street and you can see a building and you can say, man, that's a nice building, I want to go inside of it. And like if it's a public building, maybe you can go inside, right? But the equivalent of a downloadable game would more be like, I have no clue what Thailand looks like, but let's go to Thailand. And then you buy a plane ticket to go to Thailand, right? Like the the experience of downloading is buying a plane ticket without actually knowing the place. And you're trying to sell the downloadable game by giving the player like travel brochures and saying like, Thailand is amazing. You should totally go to Thailand now.
That was good analogy. I think like yeah, like buying a plane ticket like to some like Asian or like South American country. Like, oh yeah, you might get robbed, you might get stabbed, or like but yeah, you can trust me. Like it's sort of like cool stuff. Like um, one thing that like I wanted to ask, like have you like tried like any like other like sites, like maybe like more traditional, like let's say traditional, like Congregate or like Miniclip or like
Yeah. So
have you like contacted
a
them or like
lot of these sites, like both of the sites that you mentioned, Congregate and Miniclip, ended up being publishing studios now. Congregate actually stopped accepting like website game submissions last year. They were like a super cool site. I remember when I started making games. At one point, I found my way back to Congregate after like not being 12, right? And I was reading some of the things that I had going on the website, and it was super cool. They actually had like this whole idea that the top 10 games that get played the most on Congregate end up getting a cash prize. It was nothing much, right? Like it was 500 euros for the most played game, and then like 400 for the second one most played, and so on. But it was still like a bit of an incentive. And I was thinking to myself, wow, that's so cool. When I make a game that I'm proud of, I'm gonna put it on Congregate as well. But then Congregate stopped like accepting submissions a few months after that. So that never happened. But when it comes to Miniclip, I think Miniclip falls into the category of like I mentioned, like armor games where you kind of have to email the people that are running the game, that are running the website. And some of these sites are actually willing to pay to have those games like on the feature there. I'll link a blog post by a guy named Newsu or something like that. Their Twitter handle is New Nesu. And they actually work at Miniclip now, but they wrote this super cool blog post a few months ago about how like for about 2 years they were basically living by I'm gonna send this to you on Discord if you could post it in the chat. Where they wrote a blog post about how they were actually just like making games for fun essentially. And then a big part of like what they were doing afterwards with those games was trying to sell them to this more like traditional web portals, like you said, right? The thing with those web portals is that like they are way less democratic, right? Like it's when you email Miniclip and you're like, hey, I want to have my game on Miniclip, you should pay me 300 euros. They wouldn't be like, yes, absolutely, here you go. They're probably gonna check the game, right? And like they're gonna actually play it and see if they like it and if they think it like upholds their standards. But it's still something worth trying. Just like the platforms that I mentioned have like free form submissions. I think like there's another one that I can think of off the top of my head, gotm.io, which is a website for publishing Godot made web games. I'm not sure like how many people actually visited, but it's like another site that I remember off the top of my head that allows you to just like click upload game and then you throw the game in and that's it, right? So I'm not really sure like how many other platforms there are out there. I think like Gamejolt and Itch and Newgrounds would be the big ones. But I'm sure there's like some smaller ones, right? And especially when it comes to more niche communities, you can probably find like a better audience if you or a more like the audience that you're looking for if you do look at these more niche sites. There's I know, for example, about Glorious Trainwrecks, which is not that much a website for just submitting games. It's like a forum and a website for submitting games, but it's in this like very weird realm of like extremely avant-garde / sheet posting games, uh, of just like a bunch of hobbies developers having loads of fun making like extremely weird stuff. Uh, and if you post a game like that on itch, I'm not sure like how successful it would be, but if you post it, like if you make something in like a PowerPoint presentation that's actually a game and you post it in Glorious Trainwrecks, like people there are probably going to love it.
Okay. And I think we talked before the talk that you also like tried posting like I mean you already like created like Steam page. Like how was like this experience like creating a Steam page versus creating an itch.io page, like
It is
where did you feel?
exhausting. It's like I said, like through the talk, it's a lot of these sites are ran by people that actually feel like people, right? Like I can write a personal message to Tom Fulp saying, "Hey, can I put a demo of my game here and host a competition?" And he's gonna reply the next day and be like, "Yeah, sure, that sounds super cool," right? And it feels like I'm talking to a person, like I'm talking to you now. When you want to submit something to Steam, it's like you're trying to like immigrate into a country that has nothing to do with the European Union. You get a shit ton of forms that you have to fill out, and you're just filling stuff out. And then Steam at one point says, "Okay, I want you to provide me with like a graphical asset in 12 different dimensions." And you have to give them a graphical asset in 300 times 100 resolution, and then one in 50 times 200, and then like whatever they make up their mind for. And then you click submit, and then a few days later, you get a message back saying, actually the logo on this one is not visible enough, corrected. So it feels like it feels dehumanizing, right? Like it doesn't feel like you're talking to a person. And like for me at least, like regardless if Steam is the most like profitable like platform to be on, it feels a lot shittier to put anything on Steam than it does to put it on Newgrounds. Because when I'm putting something on Newgrounds, I feel like that's where like I know that people are running the whole thing and that they appreciate the games that I'm making and I'm putting on their website. And that kind of like goes in the whole with the whole thing of like just humanize the game, right? Like make the people know that you are the person behind the game and you're the one that's making the game, that it's a human and not just like that the game isn't just like another piece of content on the internet for them to ignore or that has no face attached to it.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and if we touch on this topic like of like humanizing the games, right? When you said like there's a lot of like conference, right? There also exists this. I'm also like share. There also exists this thing which is called Game Conference Guide. I hope this will, yeah, okay, this is showing. So it's really cool page like where you can like check like all of the conferences and like which are ones are physical, which are happening now, which is like festival, like which is kind of like B2 like business more and stuff like that. And it's through all over the world, right? Like and it's really cool thing, and it's actually like run by like Slovakian Game Developer Association. They can like gather all of the data like through like all of the like countries. You can see like Spain, Germany, United Kingdom, and so on. And yeah, it's quite cool site to check out. And I'm also going to share this, I guess.
Yeah, that looks super cool. We should put this in the description.
Yeah, I will. So it's and yeah, and it's like I think there's like this fun fact that like if you would go to like all of the events in 2021, you need like 2.5 years. So yeah, but like I think like okay, before the epidemic and stuff like that, right? I said like I think it was not so much of quantity, but like quality of like how you present the game, like how you like present your booth, how much like connections did you get on the conference, like how much like press, like spot your like game. And also like when I when I talk to developers, like one thing that they always say, like it's really easier, like I said, like to when you like show somebody the game and you talk to him, like it's really easy like to send out like a follow-up email, right? Like it's because they now match this imaginary like email with the face that you have. And yeah. And
Yeah, and I
like
think just like to that point, right, of like getting press attention and everything, right? Like I think this sort of stuff, like I said, is like hard and it's exhausting, and you don't know like if you're going to get anything out of it. So I think like you a lot of times, like especially if your goal is not to like make something into a commercial product, it's just like I use games as a medium. I want to see what people think about this. I want to improve as a game developer. I want to see if like my message got out there. Go to smaller events, like go to the more
yeah,
tight
yeah.
communities, because that's the one where it's like where it feels a lot more personal and you might like make some friends along the way. I've also found like it interesting and a really nice experience to more like dabble and mix not just like on game conferences but also other just like art adjacent like games adjacent conferences. I went to last year. I managed to go to two zine, so like printable comics, right, or like whatever magazines about whatever you want to festivals, and a lot of people there also happen to be working on like digital magazines and digital interactive art pieces. And people that like when I was talking to them and asking them about their work, and they asked me, and they were interested in the work that I did as well, regardless of the fact like that I wasn't specifically at a games conference, right? It's just like in general, I feel like people that like creating things are interested in other people that like creating things, right? um so it, even if you go to like something that's not directly related to games, you might be able to find a nice community willing to like look at your things and be willing to like give you feedback or whatever it is that you're looking for.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think like yeah, that's one thing that's really like cool about like these events, and like that you just get a feedback, like because like how I look at least when you like publish let's say some game or like some free game online, right? It's not about like just putting it out there and like it's finished story and it's an end, right? But it's kind of like iteration, right? You go through like multiple iterations, and like you said, like maybe you do some achievements, maybe you like try different mechanics, and like it's not like oh, now I just made this page and it will be forever on. I mean, I know that for some of my projects, like it's like that, like I will maybe do a game and like I will leave it there and that's end of the story, right? But like a lot of time it's like you do iteration. It's kind of like developing art piece, right?
Yeah, but I do think like what you said, like for some of my projects is also like that. I just put them
Yeah,
on.
yeah,
You just feel like if people notice it, that's it, and that's fine. And if people don't notice it, that's also completely fine, right? It's I think doing that sort of stuff, like just being willing to like, okay, fuck it, I'll just put this on and let's see what like anything happens to it. That kind of like maybe gives you the confidence to then
yeah.
when you like actually have a game that you care about more, that you're willing to like go through these hoops of like, okay, let's seriously put this on, right? And let's actually make the website nice, and let's try emailing some people about it, right? Because now you're used to putting stuff on out there. You want to take a step for like after that. Whereas if you just like want to go for that one from the get go, it might feel even more intimidating than it already is.
Cool. I am out of questions, Brin, and I think this will be a last call for any questions. If anybody from the audience have some questions, yeah, thank you again for the talk and for all of the like insight and all of the links. And as Brin said, we will also post all the links in the Discord channel and also in in the description of this video, so you can like later check all the sites and so on. And yeah, and I'm gonna say that yeah, we will like also like hang out a little bit in the Slovenia Games Discord server, which I will link it now. And that's it. Do you have any like last words, Brin, before we
You can follow me on Twitter. I'll post my Twitter. 1 second, because like I said, I'm in the process of putting some stuff on Steam, and I'll post on Twitter about it when I do get there. So here it is, Rock. If you want to repost it into the
Okay, I will do that. Yeah, and you also have like your own own blog post where you like ramble about some things,
yeah.
right?
Like if you click on the Twitter link, all of the links should be in the Twitter bio. So all links lead to Twitter in the end. So
So yeah, that's it, I guess. Thank you everybody for joining in, and see you next month.
bye bye.